really unique because of the way people adapt to the Arctic environment is really awesome. Like my place and a lot of places don't have full water piping. When it comes to water solutions and heating solutions and overall comfort solutions, it's just way different than a regular house in a regular city. Alaska's pretty unique in that aspect.
I live in a yurt with wood heat and no electricity. And there's no rules about it really at all.
I guess what I like about Fairbanks is that you can do these kinds of things or you don't have to, and people are pretty judgmental about the lifestyle you choose. It's like kind of a real like, you do what you want to do and I'll do what I want to do, and we'll just live together. And people seem to be pretty respectful of the choices that other people make here. It's not like doesn't seem to be a lot of shaming or anything like that about the way somebody chooses to live. So it's kind of cool.
What's unique about the lifestyle living in a dry cabin is people who have running water, they poop and eat in the same building, and that's gross.
Makes you realize you don't need as much as you thought you needed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can still live a pretty healthy, productive life without all the instantaneous water. Although it is nice. I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I made it all the way until December 18th this year on solar power energy alone, and that is just phenomenal in my mind. I hear people talk about alternative solutions all the time in Fairbanks or Alaska in general, and there's a lot of skepticism or don't think it's going to work, but I think my house is a pretty good example of it's a very small scale solution, obviously, compared to what other people want to use solar panels for, but I essentially used I saved 9 months worth of electricity bills on just energy from the sun alone.
Yeah, well, one thing that I love about Fairbanks is how people are survivalists in a lot of ways without it being like super about their ego. It's just kind of like fun living, like the challenges of living and devoting your energy to making life happen, I think, is just kind of normal, but it's a nice kind of like meditation or like cycle, or you kind of get into a groove, like, yeah, you've got to get your water, yeah, you've got to chop your wood, and you spend like a decent portion of your day doing that, but it feels so right to be able to it's like a more holistic approach to living, and I love that. And maybe that's one of the things that makes Fairbanks really cool, is people have kind of centered like earthy element to them because they spend a lot of time making their life happen instead of just having life happen around them and having like these really, really easy, like all the conveniences, they're here and you can have them if you want, but I like it better like this.
I just like living out here in the middle of nowhere almost. I'm on the edge. I decided 3 or 4 years ago, after coming out and touring here with bands for 3 or 4 summers, that I wanted to stay. This was like a place that people really appreciated art and individuals, and everybody kind of had a high threshold for the weird, I guess.
When you get up, you have to stoke the fire, and you have to make sure you're home 3 times a day to stoke the fire, or else you're starting a new fire. And you guys split a lot of firewood. And that's not because we don't have water, but because we don't have power, I guess.
Yeah, when I talk about hauling water up here for my water tank, I have a big white square box that goes in the back of my truck, and mine holds 100 gallons. And I literally, just like there's gas stations everywhere, there's also water stations in Fairbanks, and it looks just like a gas station in the fact that you have a nozzle the same exact way, and you literally just pull up and put a few bucks in it, which it's not even a few dollars. It's so cheap for water here. You usually pull up and it costs me, I think like 75 cents to fill up 100 gallons of water.
So this summer I was filtering water out of Goldstream Creek, which goes right around the cabin. Had a fancy charcoal and ceramic filter. But in the winter the cabin freezes too much to be doing that. So So we've been hauling water from the water wagon or from the box spring. And the water wagon is the place where you go put your nickels in and water comes out like pumping your gas and it's city water. Or we can go, there's a well out in Fox, or I guess it's a pump out of the spring. And that's spring water and it's free, but you just have to drive over there and fill up your buckets and then haul them out here.
My name is Dean Shannon, and welcome to my dry cabin.
The thing that makes this cabin unique is not the fact that it's dry, but that it's dry so close to the center of town. It's in the Geist Road area, and at the corner of the property there's actually a little marker saying, "Please don't dig here, you'll hit the water main." It taunts me every time I drive by, but it's grandfathered in, and so it'll stay dry until someone decides to pony up the cash to hook into the mains.
This place was built with efficiency in mind. For one thing, a lot of the materials are recovered and repurposed, whatever. And a lot of it was found right here, like the floor over there is stone that Robin gathered at this quarry that he's got nearby, which is pretty rad, I think. And of course, yeah, being underground, it's built-in insulation, so it's supposed to retain heat, which it does for sure, compared to the cabins that are like perched up on a hill somewhere and the drafts like blowing through. That absolutely isn't a problem. I think the one trade-off is having a ton of windows right here, so that I do have at least a little bit of daylight and I don't turn into a mole. There's an awful lot of air leaking through those, but I wouldn't trade it for a minute, because like being able to lay on my bed and watch the birds feeding in the morning, or the moon pouring in at night, it's pretty nice.
I'm fairly content in the dry cabin lifestyle. I don't really see myself changing that anytime soon. There is annoyances with it, but there's a lot of just rewards with it of how much you end up saving. And I probably wouldn't switch to a standard house with running water unless I had kids. But as an adult, it's pretty easy to live without running water.
People are very accepting up here of everybody's individual lifestyle and what they wanted to do, what they want to do with their time, and what they do with their living space. And so we wanted something. Okay, wait, I'm going to cut through all that. We're poor. We're poor. Yeah, we can't afford to live in a place with running water. What I would do for a toilet inside. Negative 50 really kind of wakes you up when you're out there staring at the stars and the northern lights. It's beautiful, but a warm toilet seat would be nice too.
I moved here because I wanted to see what it would be like. I wanted to try dry cabin living out. I dig being in the outdoors. I know that I can handle being without amenities. I knew that before I ever tried it out. But it wasn't really for financial reasons at all. I think I would probably still live in this place if it was more expensive. Just because I love it. And it doesn't feel like I've really given anything up. Yeah, that's not really a part of it at all.
I think it's interesting that we have the dry option here in Fairbanks, and everybody understands. It's like doing your penance. You have to do it if you want to move up in the world around here. And I don't know why they do it. I know why they do it, because they can, and it's business. Why they jack up the price on places with running water, even if it's just a holding tank. The rent's double, if not more. You're going to pay $800-900 a month for the same size place as this, with a bathroom attached to it. Rather, I can just go outside for $400 a month, I guess, and use the outhouse. But the thing is, after a couple of years of using the outhouse, we might have to move our son. That's the thing that gets kind of hairy. You only have this much time, and then you always have to keep a stick in the outhouse for when the stalagmite grows too high, and it might poke you in the ass. Can I say ass? In the butt. and you got to knock it down. You don't have to do that with a regular toilet. And I think that's why they jack up the rent so much, is because you don't have to deal with the poo. You kind of put it in a water bowl and you sends it out of the house. We have to deal with it. In the summer, it gets hot, and if the wind blows the right way, you can smell it. And that's just it. And there's lots of flies. And if you don't put the lime in there, and you learn these tricks over the years of living up here of how to deal with it. But that first year is all trial and error, and it's bad. And I think it will scare a lot of people into going and paying that extra $400 or $500 a month to go live in a place with running water.
I guess the only thing, people like my parents, I mean, one other thing something that people might not realize is that, I mean, my folks, they're always surprised when they're like, I can't believe you live without running water. That's just so weird. How do you do that? And I guess one of those things, like when you actually do it, it's really not as difficult. I mean, it's the way people have been living and people still live this way in the parts of the world that have been living this way for thousands of years. I mean, you somehow create this container to carry water to where you're eating or sleeping. It's not really that different, other than you just don't have a tap where the water comes up. I don't think I think the thing is, like, people are really surprised by it, but once you live that way, you realize, well, actually it's not that difficult, and it's not that hard to live without a shower. I just noticed, like, my standards have changed completely since living without running water about cleanliness and, like, which just sounds kind of gross, but you realize, well, it's actually not that hard, and it's not really that gross, and it's actually a pretty simple way to live. And when you don't have something like at a continual source out of the tap, I mean, it really makes you conscious about the way you use that resource, and I think that's probably the biggest thing I've realized is, like, when you have something, when you just have a plug in the wall or a faucet, it's easier just to use it indiscriminately and not really think about conserving. Even if you're like a conscious person about, like I am, I think, about the resources I use, and I try to conserve them. And even so, when I've lived places with running water and electricity, I'm more indiscriminate about the way I do it. I often don't turn off the light or, like, use power frivolously, and even though I'm paying for it, or use the water frivolously, and wash dishes just letting it run down the sink and stuff like that. And I think that's probably the biggest difference for me, since not having those things so easily accessible, and there's more physical labor involved in getting those things, I'm way more conscious about the way that I use the resource. And it just makes me wonder if that doesn't contribute to a lot of the issues we have today.
Now whenever I am staying at someone's house or in a hotel, you start to think actually how much water you're really using, because when you haul water, you're very conscious of how much you're using, and then all of a sudden, if you visit someone or you stay at someone's house and they've got running water, you start realizing how much people use fresh water for things that they really don't need fresh water for, like turning the sink on, run your hands under it, letting it run while you grab something else, going back to it. You start to realize how much water people actually do waste when you live a lifestyle where every drop is precious and you need to conserve it.
An essential part of living in a dry cabin is having a good outhouse. And what makes an outhouse good is you have blue foam insulation for the seat. That is a must. Now, an extra that I've put in is wired in electricity, so that now you've got a light in the dark. Well worth it, pretty easy to do, but not necessary. The necessary part is the blue foam. If you do not have it, you will regret it all winter long.
Oh, the culture and the extreme pride and that are within the dry cabin community. It's kind of amazing. Everybody's pretty, most of us are poor, and that's why we do this, or there's people that just choose to live this lifestyle. And I think it's our way of banding together and to snubbing our nose at all the people that have running water, because we're awesome, we're tough, we're all those people that say, well, I want to save the planet. They're driving around their SUVs, going to their heated toilet seats and all this stuff. And me, no, I am saving the planet. I'm putting it back where it belongs, outside, away from my house, not inside the house, not out in some weird tank. Yeah, it's like everybody bands together, and everybody understands that you need an extra tub in your 2-basin sink to do your dishes. And God, if I had running water, I would love doing dishes. It would be a joy. But yet I don't, so I have to heat the water up on the stove and put it into the bucket and then put my dishes in there, wash them one at a time, and I always have to think, which is the dish with the least amount of gunk on it? That's the one I clean first, because if you do the dirtiest one first, the water gets dirty, and then you're heating up more water, and then you've already gone through a square jug of water just to do one load of dishes. It's ridiculous. And I think the hardships is what pulls everybody together. You know, we all have the same problems and the same issues that we have to deal with all the time. So I think it really, that's where the camaraderie comes in. You know, we're all in this together, being poor or subjecting ourselves to this for no reason at all, just because you want to. I don't know.
I know a lot of people that live without running water. Do they band together? I'm not sure, because I know a lot of folks that have running water. And it's interesting, a lot of those folks that do have running water, they take pity on people that don't often, and are like, oh, you can take a shower and things like that. So that's kind of funny. It's like to me, almost, it seems like living without amenities like running water, it's like a trial that people go through, and then once you've like become successful in Fairbanks, you move up to the stage of having a house with running water. I don't know, it seems that process. A lot of people I know live for like, you know, a decade without, in some dry cabin somewhere, and then eventually they, you know, bought a house or something, or built a house and put a holding tank in it. And so it's but do people band around it? I mean, I guess most of the people I know don't have. A good portion of the people I know don't have running water.
So living up in the hills, I live up here in Old Murphy Dome, which is essentially one of the highest points looking over Fairbanks. And because I live up so high, there is an insane temperature difference. I've lived up here now for 2.5 years, and I think I've only seen -40 a few days versus Fairbanks down in Fairbanks. They have seen it, you know, all the time. There's a temperature inversion up here, usually about 15 to 25 degrees difference on a regular day-to-day basis, and so that really is essential to the way I live up here, because, like I said, I don't have electricity 24 hours a day. I can't plug in my car. I haven't spent the money to get like an electric start or anything, and I don't really want to. It's to waste a lot of gas. So the fact that on any given day when it's -20, 25 down in town or at the university, and it's probably only 0 here. Like I said, it usually never gets colder than about -20 at my house, and that's really, really beneficial when it comes to everything here and how I maintain my heat, because my heat is also isn't dependent on electricity, so I can't really maintain my heat source kind of like most people can with a Toyo or a monitor. I have an oil drip stove, so it literally just drips in slowly or faster depending on how I choose to set it up. But there's no like standby or on or off, so it's either warm or not warm at all. So the colder it gets, I can only heat up my house to a certain point. So I'd prefer if it doesn't get colder than about -20, because it's just kind of a hassle to deal with. And most people around here have similar solutions like that, so it's a big deal that the inversion is a regular thing. Last winter there was about a week and a half where there was no inversion whatsoever, and most people up in this area were experiencing -45 degree temperatures, and that was just a really hard time.
Outside of Fairbanks and outside of Alaska, there's sort of this stigma that if you live without running water, you're this, you know, dirty hippie that never bathes, and that's really not the case. There's a lot of people that you don't even realize that they live in a dry cabin until you go over to their house, because, you know, they look like everybody else, act like everybody else. The only difference is They just take their shower someplace different than their own home. And so in Alaska, we know the truth that it's not really just people who have cut themselves off from society that lives in dry cabins, but it's just people that either live the lifestyle by choice or live the lifestyle because of financial means.
I think that dry cabin living can be for everybody. I think that it sounds freaky, like no shower, no hot water, no toilet. What the heck? You're crazy. How could you do that? But you really do learn that stuff doesn't matter, and the community elements, I think that come out of it. Like I was talking about sauna every week, or like everyone goes to the locker room or whatever to have those needs met, or the laundromat, and it affords you a little bit of time to like communicate with people in a coffee shop or like chill out. It gives life such a different pace, and you kind of just learn that so much of it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact you in the long run, and you can really do without, and it frees up some time and some brain space, I think.